Hello, everyone. Welcome back to People Do Want to Know podcast. I'll get right to it and share that today's episode is dedicated to the 1-year anniversary of October 7th. So if you're sensitive to conversations about violence, death, trauma, here are all your trigger warnings up front. With that said, what I planned for today's episode really turned out to be incredible, so please stick around if you have the space. Today's episode is a 2-part episode. What you're hearing now is part 1, and tomorrow I will release part 2. When I started this podcast in January, I obviously knew that at some point I would have to interview survivors of October 7th. It's an obvious type of guest for a podcast like mine. And you as my audience deserve this as well, because the strength and the resilience of the various heroes of October 7th is very inspiring and it deserves to be recognized. But I will be 100% honest, I held off from doing an episode covering any kind of survivor story for literally as long as possible because I was terrified. I have interviewed my idols, celebrities, incredible people, but I have been completely terrified to have a conversation with a survivor of any kind of October 7th attack. But I knew it was imminent because at some point it's just inappropriate not to acknowledge it. For months, I was thinking to myself, how dare I ask these people for their time? How dare I ask difficult questions that will force them to relive their trauma, and questions that will inadvertently end up upsetting them? It just seemed wrong. And I was also worried that by asking a survivor to come on the podcast, they'd be doing it more as a courtesy to me than anything that I could really offer them. Everyone listening to this podcast has heard numerous survivor stories. You know what happened to countless people on October 7th, one tragedy more horrific than the next. Each survivor offers us a small glimpse into the sheer hell that opened up on that day. And of course, I want to take a moment of silence now for all those who left us on that day, innocent civilians, soldiers, children, parents, everyone who was impacted. And also a moment of silence for our hostages and their families who continue to live in this hell every day. Let's do this together now. Okay, so where I was going with this is I held off from doing an episode with any survivors because I really had to think about how can I make this more comfortable for them and also more comfortable for me as the host. How can I offer them something other than having to relive their trauma to an audience? And I'll mention that one of my favorite mottos in life is, on the other side of fear is freedom. So a part of me wanted to be free from my own fear of talking to a survivor. So here's what I planned for us today. As I mentioned, you have heard countless survivor stories, and each survivor has told their story numerous times before. I don't want us to talk about this on the 1-year anniversary episode because at the end of the day, what each survivor did the day after and the whole year after is what really shapes them. How they recovered, how they persevered, how they spoke up. This is what truly helps us capture who they are as a person, and this is probably what each survivor wants to be known for. They don't want this one event to be what's remembered about them and nothing else. As people, these survivors are dynamic and radiant, and I feel so strongly about this. They need to be portrayed not just as what happened to them on October 7th. The 2 episodes I planned are a compilation of 4 very different stories. Each person survived October 7th in their own way, but more importantly, has done something tremendously impactful in the year since then. You will get to hear briefly from me what happened to each person on October 7th. From there, you will hear an interview with each person and what they did after October 7th. Today's episode will feature Shira Rosenstein and Eilat Tibi. I want to thank each guest from the bottom of my heart for contributing to one of the most special episodes I've ever done. For a set of people that have been through so much, I am truly so grateful for the generosity from each guest. And I just want to say one thing as you listen. Please have grace. Please have grace on the guests for whom English is a second language. They prepared, they found the words, and each one gave me 110% on the episode. And please have grace with me because I was so nervous. It was the most nervous I've ever been for an episode, and I had to do it 4 times, 4 separate conversations. With that said, I know that each of these stories will leave you so touched and amazed and inspired, so I cannot wait for you to hear the episode. Let's start with our first story featuring Shira Rosenstein. Shira is the public relations manager for Israel Is. Israel Is a Tel Aviv-based NGO that is dedicated to enhancing Israel's global image through meaningful interpersonal connections. They understand that minds are changed through connecting on a human-to-human level. Shira only started working for Israel Is after October 7th. Before October 7th, Shira was working in advertising and was a newlywed. Her and her husband got married just 1 month before October 7th, and they moved into their new home on October 6th. Shortly after October 7th, Shira's husband was called to fight as a reservist combat soldier, and he went straight into Gaza. Shira was obviously very worried about her husband, and she said that she would sleep a lot because she just couldn't be present in her own reality. But despite this challenge and huge concern, Shira continued to work her job in advertising. And she was telling me that she'd be like at a movie premiere or at a work event, and suddenly she'd get a phone call from her husband or the base with a status on him. And just having to go about her normal life while also managing the absence of her husband who was at war, it was really challenging and it felt wrong. So Shira decided that she also wanted to dedicate her career to advocate for Israel and to take part in the historic time that her country was undergoing. She applied to Israel Is, got the job, and the rest is history. She's been at Israel Is since March 2024. The way I got connected with Shira is because I had heard of the organization Israel Is before. I met the CEO, Nimrod, at an event in New York City where he came to talk about his own survivor story and share about the work of Israel Is. As a reservist and armed civilian, Nimrod saved numerous people on October 7th when he disobeyed his commander and drove to the south of Israel in his own car to save people from terrorists. If I remember correctly, he had said that when he heard the news, he was in such a rush to drive down to save people that he forgot actual shoes and came in like flip-flops or something. He was so dead set on saving people that day that he even filmed a goodbye video for his family in case he didn't make it out. Thankfully, Nimrod survived, although he was shot, and since then, he's been back and forth between running the NGO, serving, and doing speaking tours. Israel Is has also established what they call delegations, which travel around the world to educate people on what happened on October 7th and share testimonies. One way in which Israel Is does this is through the virtual reality film they created called Survive to Tell. This film shares stories of 5 survivors and shows actual sites of the various massacres. I asked Shira to come on and talk about this film, among other things, so you'll hear more about it from her. Shira just led a delegation to university campuses in the Northeast, so you'll also get to hear about her experience doing this 3-week tour and meeting various people. These delegations are still happening around the US and elsewhere, so if you're interested, you can look up Israel Is and Survive to Tell on social media to see if they're showing the film in your area. Now, let's hear from Shira. Hey, Shira, welcome to People Jew Want to Know podcast. How are you today?
Hi, Margarita. I'm good. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Of course, it is such a privilege to have you on and learn a little bit more about your story and your work. So please tell me, Shira, what is Israel Is and how are you involved with it?
So Israel Is an NGO based in Tel Aviv in Israel. We are dedicated to improving the perception of Israel around the world through interpersonal connections. We realized that after October 7th, our way of seeing how to improve Israel's image should be in the front stage right now, because if someone will tell their story to a crowd of what he experienced on October 7th, people will feel empathy towards that person instead of being against him. And my job in the organization is I'm the PR manager of the organization in Israel. And I also take part in the PR globally, but I mainly focus in Israel.
You've been at Israel Is for a few months now. You started in March of 2024. And how do you think the PR campaign for Israel is going?
So, in my opinion, we have a lot of work to do. We always had, and I think we will always have a lot of work to do, being Israel specifically. I do think, in my personal opinion, that we are doing a lot better than I would have expected, since it's been almost a year of this war. And it's so easy to blame Israel usually. And I feel like we could have been in a much worse situation. But yeah, we have a lot of work to do. And I feel like Israel is trying. Israel has learned a lot from previous operations and wars. and we're trying.
Yeah, I mean, the type of hate and scrutiny that Israel is up against, I think, compared to any other country in the world, it's disproportionate, and it's very hard to watch as someone who doesn't live in Israel. Israel just gets torn apart in the media for things that Saudi Arabia or North Korea wouldn't even, get a headline for. I do think one of my biggest takeaways from this whole thing is no matter where you are in the world, as a Jew, you have an obligation to help contribute to that PR campaign of Israel. Like, it's up to us to do it because people don't understand, and they watch the news and they don't have the right full context to make the right decision or to see the truth. And so I think what you're doing is really important. And one of the projects that Israel came out with that I think is perhaps the most impactful thing I've seen come out of the war is the virtual reality film Survive to Tell. Can you tell me about this film and what do you hope to achieve with it?
Yeah, so first, let me say about the first part that you spoke about. I just got back from a nearly 3-week delegation in the northeastern part of the States. And I was there with 2 Nova survivors. And one Nova survivor, his name is Ohad. He always said, people always asked him in the sessions, what would you tell me as an American to say to someone who is pro-Palestinian or is saying that Israel has been ruining Gaza for months now? What would you tell me? So he said, and I would like everyone who's hearing us now to also say that because it's helpful. He said that one thing you can say to them is, if tomorrow, let's say, Canada invaded the United States and murdered as many people as possible and took hostage as many people as possible and hit them in civilian homes, what would you expect the United States government to do? And he said that whenever he asked that, the person he spoke with said, of course, I'd expect them to do anything possible to get those hostages back and to revenge what they did to those Americans. And the moment that person said their answer, they saw the mirror that he was giving them. And usually that conversation ended with understanding at least the tip of the iceberg of what we're going through, even though it's hard when you come from an anti-Israeli perspective to fully understand what we are going through, but at least it gave a little bit of perspective. So that's about blaming Israel for what it's doing when we have so many hostages there who are completely innocent, including an infant and a baby. And regarding the VR headset, we have filmed 5 survivors from October 7th with different stories. 2 Nova survivors, 1 police officer who saved lives in the Nova Festival. He saved over 200 people that day. Also, we have a reservist who is also Israeli's CEO who fought in the kibbutzim, in the commune Israeli villages there that day. And we have a released hostage, Ophir Engel. Their stories are told in the VR headset. We went to where those people hid, where their friends were killed, where they were saved, and we filmed it with them. We went through that day with them all over again. In the headset, we show videos they took. We show stories they posted on Instagram, messages they sent to their loved ones saying goodbye. And it's a very, very powerful tool that we use in order to show people what we've been through. As Americans, I assume it's so hard to comprehend what not knowing whether your country will exist tomorrow feels like. So we try to bring that experience and to try as much as possible to make Americans feel that way with the VR headset, to show them what empathy is and what resilience is and what putting your life in danger for another person that you don't know, what it looks like and what it feels like. Because our CEO, Nimrod, who went down south and obeyed his commander's orders, he didn't know whether he lived. And also he filmed a video saying goodbye to his children. And we showed that in the VR. And he just went there to save strangers, to save his country. So what we try to do is give perspective and also help people understand us, our side, what we've been through, what we are still going through, and keep people talking about October 7th.
So I've only seen a part of the film. Tell me, how long is the entire film?
Every survivor is like between 5 to 7 minutes, I'd say. So it's around 30 minutes overall if you watch them like one after the other. So there's also an intro film, which is like 4 minutes of like showing a blend of all the testimonies. So I guess it's something like between 30 to 35 minutes.
Got it. And I saw maybe only 5 minutes of the film when I had a chance to meet Nimrod. And I remember being very touched. So I'm one of the people that has not been back to Israel since October 7th. I actually think the last time I went there was in maybe 2017 or 2018, something like this. And part of it feels like I'm not ready to face it, but also, like, what am I doing there? What am I contributing? What am I there to do? Like, it feels a little bit like if I go, I'm just taking up space. I'm not really helping anybody do anything necessarily, which if I went, I would go only, on a volunteer or service trip. But I haven't been going there kind of because of the guilt, like nothing I could do would ever be enough. And because I haven't gone there, I never saw, other than through pictures or videos, what the Nova Festival campsite looked like and what the kibbutzim looked like. And the VR glasses was the first time I actually experienced the environment, I think, in its true reality. I'll also mention, I didn't really experience VR until I put those glasses on, and it feels really real. The way that you guys film the videos of everything and the sites and the kibbutzim, it feels like you are there. And I think that is what's very powerful, because there are people out there who don't believe it's happening, who don't believe it's as bad as anyone says it is. And the VR is very important in helping show the reality and the severity of the situation. You said you've already started touring the US with this film, and I know that you did the Northeast delegation, but there are also delegations that go to other parts of America, parts where there are a lot less Jews and parts where people are not as educated. What have you learned touring the country and meeting mainly non-Jews? Because when I spoke to Nimrod, he said his first goal is to show the film to non-Jews, people who don't believe it happened, people who don't know about it entirely. So I know that the aspiration is to go into like malls and show random people the movie, or public spaces. So what was the experience like meeting people all over the US with this film?
So first of all, I wanted to tell you and to anyone who's listening to this that if you feel guilt by coming, you shouldn't. Because as Israelis, it's pretty sad to say, it's like you're the kid who's always getting beaten up. But we are so happy to see foreigners coming, who are brave enough to come during that time. It's not that scary here, but it might seem scary from the outside, who are brave enough to come and have enough empathy to come. There is so much to do here, and there's not as much to do as there was before, but just having people here, just meeting people on the street who you hear as an Israeli that they just came because of the war and they just wanted to be here for Israelis and be part, just travel the country and go to kibbutzim to volunteer and to be in the campsite of the Nova Festival. Just looking, it means so much. And to me, as an Israeli, when I meet people from abroad, it touches my heart, and you shouldn't feel guilt by not coming, and you shouldn't feel guilt by coming. And yeah, so that's first of all. And regarding the delegations, so I was on a delegation with Nova survivors, and I had the goggles with me, but it wasn't the main focus of the delegation. We went from campus to campus with the survivors, told their story, and other delegations went with the VR headset. But we had 2 goggles with us. We had opportunities to have people experience this VR. And the reactions it was amazing to see. First of all, many people asked us, who are we, where are we from? And when we felt safe enough, we said that we're from Israel. And when the survivors felt safe enough, we said that we're on a delegation with 2 Nova survivors. And have you ever heard of October 7th? And 100%, they always answered that they never heard of it. And it was baristas, it was waiters, it was just people from campus that asked us why we're here. They never heard of October 7th. And then we're like, there's no chance you haven't heard of it. So we're asking around it, have you heard of the war going on in Israel right now? Nope. Well, have you heard of the hostages in Gaza? Nope. Have you heard of Hamas? And that's when they usually said, yeah, we heard of Hamas. And then we started explaining, we had somewhere to start. So we started explaining that Hamas invaded Israel on October 7th. And many Israelis, thousands of Israelis were murdered and hundreds were kidnapped and et cetera, et cetera. And then usually they responded, oh, we prayed for you. We remember praying for you. I guess we were in areas where they were more pro-Israel. We were in Virginia, we were in Pennsylvania, in Vermont. It was amazing as an Israeli to see. Not many people said that they prayed for us, but we had some reactions that said that. I nearly cried when they said that, because as an Israeli, I usually tend to not watch foreign news because it's depressing, but I do know sort of what's going on. But to hear that they prayed for us or that they just don't know, it was also pretty comforting, because then I had an opportunity to tell them our side. And when we did have an option to show them the VR, they were shocked. They were at loss of words usually, and they cried. During that experience, we saw tears. Afterwards, they always asked us, how did we not know this? It was amazing to see people experience this. It was touching. It gave us hope, to be honest. It gave us hope knowing that Americans do have empathy for us, and it's not as it shows in the news that they only protest pro the Palestinians. People who care will care.
Wow. And were you initially nervous to engage with strangers in these random towns and talk to them about this?
For sure, yeah. Every time someone asked us what language we're speaking with each other or where are we from, because we all looked very different. And they always, when they saw us or heard us speak, they always asked us where we're from. We were always nervous to answer, but it depends. It depended usually on campuses. When people asked us, we said that we're from Greece and that we speak Greek, because the odds of having someone speak Greek were pretty low. And we didn't want to say that we're from Germany or something, because that would have been uncomfortable if that person spoke German. So when we did feel a little comfortable, we said that we're from Israel. Then they asked us what we're doing here, whether we're touring around or doing something else. So usually we said that we're on a delegation. And if we felt more comfortable, we said that we're on a delegation improving Israel's image, and we are here with 2 survivors going to campuses. One time we met a barista. She didn't know of October 7th, but she did hear about the war. And after we left the coffee, we sat outside, and then she ran to us and said, where are you speaking tonight? I have to come. I spoke with my mom and she said, I have to come. I'm going to pick her up after I finish here and we'll come. Tell me where it is. And I gave her my number. I gave her the address and everything. It was amazing. What started out as us being pretty not sure whether we'll say where we're from ended up to being she wants to come. She ran to us. She made sure she spoke with us before we left and got the details of where we're speaking.
That's crazy. It's such a touching story, and also so vulnerable, because you're worried, is there going to be a security issue? You don't know who these people are. Are they asking sincerely, or are they going to show up with a counter protest? So I'm glad you had, for most of the time, a positive experience. But I can imagine just the whole delegation and being there, it was a very taxing process. Are you planning to go back or no?
We are in Israel. We are planning to have more delegations. Right now, we still have delegations. And in November, we are planning to have more. And we always have delegations. Since October 7th, we feel like our job never ends. We are always needed, whether it's American campuses or anywhere else that we need to be at, we will be there. And whether it's uncomfortable for us to be there, or on the first campus, we had a protest in the campus. I don't know if they knew that we were coming and that's why they had it or whatever, but it wasn't pleasant. And we had security escort us. It's not going to stop us. We're going to come, and we'll come again and again and again until people understand our side and people will know, even just know our side.
For the people that live in America or elsewhere where you're touring, how can they know that you're coming with a delegation to their place?
So usually we work with Hillel or Chabad. We come through them and they publish that we're coming. We want everyone to come, but we are also worried about our security and are careful how we publicize it. We don't want anyone with bad intentions coming, and we don't want anyone violent coming. We always try to have everyone, but not anyone who is gonna ruin it or gonna trigger the survivors or us. If like you live in a certain city, you can look through the university or through the Hillel Instagram page or Chabad Instagram page and see that they post about us and that we're coming.
Yeah, and also feel free to message your campus Hillel or Chabad to ask if the delegation is coming and when they might come. I know that where I went for undergrad, University of Minnesota recently had a delegation come through, and there was a whole event where they watched on the VR headsets parts of the movie and stuff like that. So the delegations are definitely around all over the country, at least in the US for sure. I know you guys also have a project in Australia, right? So it's happening all over the world, which is amazing.
The easiest way is just to contact us through Survive to Tell or Israel is You on Instagram and ask us. We're very responsive through social media, and just ask us whether we're coming to your campus or your city, and we'll answer.
And as we wrap here, I have a tough question ahead for you, but I'm very curious to know how you would answer it. So we're a year in, and knowing what you know now, given your story, given your experience, what do you think you would tell your pre-October 7th self?
It's a really tough question. I don't remember life before October 7th, to be honest. It's not even a year in, and I don't remember what it was like before. Everything changed, and our perspectives changed. That year has matured us in like 15 years. So I wouldn't want to go back to before October 7th because I would have never wished myself to experience October 7th again. I don't have an answer to that. I just don't remember life before October 7th.
Yeah, I can imagine I asked you a very difficult question that's hard to pinpoint. And maybe it would be easier to answer if the war was over and we still didn't have hostages that were trapped. But even though we're quickly approaching 1 year, it hasn't ended. So it's very hard to say how you feel because you're still very much living it every single day.
For Israelis, we are still in October 7th. So that's why we always say that talking about October 7th is never irrelevant. We are still there. We still have hostages there. We are still mourning our friends, our families, the houses that were ruined, that were burned. We are still there. So again, even though it's not even a year in, it feels still like October 7th and as if it was always October 7th.
I just think a lot about the future, like if I ever have kids, or I think about my non-Jewish friends who've moved on with their lives. And I just pause and think, this is my generation's Holocaust. This is the Holocaust of my generation. Does no one understand how serious that is?
In Israel, at least for me as a newlywed and for the people around me who we are pretty young and don't have kids yet, we were talking about it a lot, about should we even have kids? we know we should, because when they try to kill us, we need to have kids. They killed so many of us, so it'll be their victory if we don't have kids. But how do you have kids to that world? I mean, babies were slaughtered and babies were kidnapped. I don't want my babies to have the same fate. So as an Israeli, as a Jew, it's something I deal with. And the people who surround me also deal with it. And people who have kids already ask themselves here, what world did I bring my kids to?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a viral TikTok that I saw of a guy. He interviews people on the street that look well dressed or confident. He comes up to them and he says, "You look so confident. How do you get your confidence?" And one of his viral videos is he happened to run into a woman who's a Nova Music Festival survivor, and she had immigrated to the US after October 7th. And he asked her, where do you get your confidence from? And she's like, well, actually, I'm a Nova Music Festival survivor. And I recently came here to the US, and I get my confidence because I know what happened to me after the experience I had. And I remember watching that video and just thinking, I do not blame that woman for a second for moving after what she experienced, because I completely understand why she could have needed to get away and feel like herself for just a moment, because being in Israel on the ground, it's like being outside. It's an out-of-body experience. You're not with yourself. You're doing something else. It's like a complete dissociation. So that video really stuck with me. And when you talk about, do I bring kids into this world? I hear you. I understand why you say that.
Yeah, but it's also important to say that I was just now in the US, as we said, and after like a week being there, I really wanted to come back home. I wanted to stay because I wanted to do that important work, but I also felt like I have to be in my country. And I don't blame that woman for a second, but I do feel like for me specifically, being in Israel gives me confidence, because then I know that I'm with the people I love and I know exactly where they are. And I know that here, at least, I won't get attacked in the street by a protester, or that my country...
A lady with blue hair who doesn't wear deodorant.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I feel like it's a debate I'm dealing with as well. But a part of me always says that if I leave and my friend leaves and my other friend leaves and my siblings leave, who will stay? And this is our only country. And that country we had after the Holocaust. And even though we had October 7th, we can't let that happen again. The people in Israel are really strong. And as we speak, I'm always like moving between this being the hardest year of our lives and this being a very connecting year and very grounding. This year has showed me how much, even if we can be so divided as we were before October 7th, we will always be, I mean, I know it's a cliche, but I really, really feel like we are family. And when my husband was in reserves and when he was in Gaza, so many people came by and made dinners for me. And when he didn't have any more socks to wear, people drove 3 hours to the Gaza border and brought him socks. So I don't see where that will happen anywhere else on earth. I feel like the people in Israel are made of something else, something so unique and special. These tough times just bring it out.
You're right. I do think that's completely unique to Israelis, and it's an amazing gift that we have in our lives, not just as Israeli, but also as Jewish people, to be connected together, no matter what. I have been highly touched and sincerely touched by everything you said today. You opened my eyes in many ways, and every day I learn something new, and, I hear different stories, but yours impacted me in a way that I think I can't convey to you in words. There are no words that I could tell you that would explain how I feel in speaking with you. So I have to sincerely thank you. And in closing, I want to ask, how can people connect with you and with Israel Is and find more information about this very important work?
We are very active on social media. We have an Instagram page specifically for this project called Survive to Tell. the Instagram page is called survive.to.tell. And we also have an Instagram page for our organization called Israel is You. And we always post there. We always update on what we're doing. And yeah, that's where you can also ask us where we are headed to next and also see what we're doing.
Thank you so much for doing this, Shira. It's been a real privilege.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor speaking to you.
Our second conversation features a Nova Music Festival survivor named Eilat Tibi. Eilat is originally from Eilat, and she now lives in Tel Aviv. She has a master's in public policy from Tel Aviv University, and she served as a commander in the Israeli Air Force. She was also the resource development coordinator in the Tribe of Noah Foundation. Eilat and I met in person in New York City in truly the most ridiculous way. In New York, for Jewish events, we have what's informally known as gala season. It's a period of a few months where a lot of the Jewish organizations throw galas. It's black tie, we're talking tickets that are at least $150 each, and you're supposed to be dressed to the nines and ready to schmooze. As with anything in New York, some galas are more selective than others, and by way of a few connections, I ended up getting my ass into one of the most selective galas of all. It was the type of gala where you couldn't even buy a ticket. You had to be invited by someone specific, and only then could you get a ticket. The event was the most snobbery per capita out of any Jewish event I've ever been to. Everyone there was a someone. And I just felt so happy to be there, honestly, because it's a perfect place to be when you have a Jewish podcast dedicated to interviewing cool, accomplished Jews. The experience was a prom dance party on steroids with an open bar. Picture the music blasting and everyone dressed in gowns looking very important. I was in a group of friends talking to another group of people, and I introduced myself to Eilat. And here's how the conversation went. Hey, I'm Margarita. Nice to meet you. Hey, I'm Eilat. But imagine it's like really loud and you have to yell everything. Eilat, do you live in the city? No, I'm visiting from Israel. Oh, how did you hear about this gala? And then Eilat goes, I got invited last minute. I didn't even have the right type of dress to wear with me. When you're a Nova Music Festival survivor, you can get into pretty much anywhere these days. And I just go, what? And she's like, yeah, I'm a Nova Music Festival survivor. I'm visiting in the US to share my story. And that was that. We instantly connected and became friends. I want to share now what happened to Eilat on October 7th. She did a full episode about this on the Dance Again podcast, which I highly recommend, but I'll share some details with you here. Eilat planned to go to Nova for the first time in her life with her friends. Although the festival started on October 6th and went into the 7th, Eilat and her friends decided to get a good night's sleep and show up to the festival early with the sunrise. At about 6 a.m., they arrived to the festival, and Eilat probably set the record for the shortest music festival attendance ever before the terrorist attack began. Eilat was only there for 30 minutes before it became clear that everyone was in danger and had to flee. After running for some time and trying to figure out what's going on, Eilat froze. She couldn't believe what was happening, and she just froze. But she somehow got it together and started running again, and her friends got into a vehicle with others and drove off. She said it took them around 2 hours, I think, to get out of there, of which she remembers very, very little. Her freeze and flight response was coupled with a blackout response, so she couldn't initially remember what happened to her. From speaking to the people she was with, she now knows that they saw countless dead bodies, terrorists in their cars, etc., but in the moment then, she didn't see any of it. When she finally made it to safety after the attack, it took her time to reprocess and recall her experience, which she will talk about in the episode. However, I'll mention that Eilat went to serve right away, so she went right into action when she made it back. It took her time to retrace her steps, and I know that she felt shame that she couldn't remember what happened. As someone with a good position in the IDF, she also felt shame that maybe she could have done more to help others or to intervene somehow, but she just blacked out and fled. But of course, there's no shame in any of this, and I'm so glad Eilat is okay. After serving, Eilat ended up going to America for the first time in her life to tour in the US with her story and work at the Nova Music Festival exhibit. She learned a lot from this experience, and she'll talk about this more, but there are a few things Eilat said to me after we recorded that were interesting and will stick with me. Eilat really enjoyed visiting America and had a hard time readjusting to life when she came back to Israel. But if you remember our conversation with Shira, as we heard, Shira was actually craving to go back home after her delegation in the US. So it's interesting, they had different experiences. Eilat also mentioned that in America, working at the exhibit made her, quote unquote, live in the trauma. I just thought it was an interesting phrase that she used, but it honestly makes total sense. And finally, offline, Eilat and I talked about foreigners visiting Israel, since this was something I had discussed with Shira as well. And Eilat said that people who don't understand Hebrew, when they visit Israel, they don't get the full extent of the sadness. They're spared from what's really happening on the ground. And it dawned on me how right she is. I never thought about this. I have plenty of American Jewish friends who went to Israel since the war, and they said they had a great time. And it makes so much sense if you can't fully grasp what is happening. Eilat doesn't shy away from the difficulty of being a survivor. She's raw, she's real. Some days are hard for her, and other days she is trailblazing through life exactly like I saw her at that gala. Let's now hear from Eilat. Hello, Eilat. Welcome to People Jew Want to Know podcast. How are you today?
Great. Thank you for having me, Margarita.
It's so good to chat with you again. I know the story of how we met is absolutely crazy. So I can't wait to talk more in this episode, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share your story today. My first question for you is, talk to me about your life post-October 7th. How did you process this experience, and how did you heal from it?
On October 7th, my personal story that during the escape, I were in a position of freeze and the flight. So from the 2 hours that I were in a fleeing situation, when I escaped the war zone, I remember maybe 10 minutes from these 2 hours. And this is also what happened to me after October 7th. The day after, I went to the military, to my unit, and served in reserve, and I was really, really busy. And I didn't really cope with what happened to me on October 7th until 3 weeks after. So for me, after 3 weeks, this is the time that I start processing what happened to me. And because I didn't remember a lot of the things, the way that I cope with that was to talk with other survivors. It was my therapist recommended me to do that. And also the Nova community opened to us spaces that we can go there, meet with other survivors. And I knew that this is the way that I need to retell the story, reliving it together with other survivors, that I will really understand what happened to me. After I create my own story and I understood what really happened to me, it was almost 1.5, 2 months after. Only after this period of time, I started talking about being there. And this was the most helpful thing that I did. And also being at the reserve, because the first 8 months I was very busy. I am a major in the Air Force, so I was there all the time. I had a lot of soldiers that I needed to operate all the time. So I had a feeling that I'm needed, that I'm important to the system. So the first month I had my therapy, retold the story with other survivors, recreate it. And also I was really busy and didn't stop work for a minute.
After you were done with your reserve duty, you also had the chance to go to America where we met. And it was the first time you went to America as well. And you went because you were one of the survivor volunteers at the Nova Music Festival. You went around the exhibit and you spoke to people, and you also did speaking events generally around the country. What did you learn about America and Jews that live in America? How was it?
Okay, so after I finished my reserve, I had the opportunity to come to the state and tell my story. At first, I thought that it will be like 8 days and then I will come back to Israel. But from the minute that I met with Jewish community outside Israel, for me, it was the first time that I realized what is the life for the Jewish community outside Israel. Because before that, I lived in Israel. I knew that there are Jewish outside Israel, but I didn't understand why Jewish live outside Israel. It's the first time that I met with Jewish communities that I understood how much they love Israel, how much we are connected to each other. I learned a lot from the Jewish community and about our relationship. One of them is about anti-Semitism. After October 7, for me, as a Jew that live in Israel all my life, I didn't felt anti-Semitism. I know that this is something that exists, that we need to talk about it, learn about it, but I didn't really understand how much it's part of people's life outside Israel if they are Jewish. I remember that I met people at the exhibit and I told them, please bring your un-Jewish friends that they can see what happened to us on October 7th. And they told me my un-Jewish friends don't talk with me after October 7th. And also, this is the first time that I was in a place that I felt uncomfortable to wear my Jewish jewelry. And after I met with the Jewish community, I understood that all the Jewish community outside Israel, they feel anti-Semitism not only after October 7th, also before. Some days more intense, less intense. I was in shock because everyone told me how much I brave that I live in Israel, that I live in a war zone, that I live in a place that I'm not really safe, like I wasn't safe on October 7th. But I realized that the Jewish that live outside Israel are not safe. And live like that all your life, it's also being brave. So this is something that I understood. And also, because of anti-Semitism, I realized that the Israelis, the Jewish in Israel, can't live without the Jewish outside Israel. Because we need people that will be outside Israel, that will spread the values of the Jewish community, the idea of how much Israel important and needed for the Jewish people, and we can't do it alone because we need the governments of all the countries in the world that will support Israel and will support the way that we defend ourselves, all our 75 years that Israel exists, and also especially the last year. And only the Jewish outside Israel can do that when they do it in their communities, in their countries, in the governments, and understand how much we need each other. We can't exist without the other one. And one more thing that I learned about America, I knew that October 7 and what happened on October 7 is a war of terror. It's good against evil. What happened to us is that we were 4,000 people, and also all the people in their kibbutzim, in the moshavim, they just lived their life. And terrorists came to us and murdered us, and people didn't came back on that day. October 7 is the day that me and my friends went to a festival to celebrate life through dance and spread love. And in that day, a terror organization entered to Israel and murdered 1,200 people that day. It's a story of terror organization, and it was very obvious to me because I live in Israel and I deal with that every day, with terror, with feeling unsafe. And after being in America, I met survivors of 9/11. A lot of them told me that it's the first time that they meet other survivors from terror attack. And what I learned about it, that the story of October 7 is not story only about Israel. It's really the story about terror that America felt on 9/11, and we have more people that offended from terror all the 75 years of Israel. So I learned about the connection between humans, between people, and the story about terror is not only Israel's story. It's story of humanity. And when I met 9/11 survivors, I also learned about my community, the community of Israel and the Nova community, how much we are strong. Because I met survivors of 9/11 that didn't have the tools to meet with other survivors. I asked them if they are meeting with other survivors, tell their stories, retold their stories, or get any support from other survivors. And they told me that they don't have this community. I felt so blessed that we are, as Israel, we understood how much community is so important, that we create the Nova community. And only when I'm meeting other survivors, I can feel less guilt about surviving that day and can relate with the compassion and love that people show to me. And also I understand that we can grow together. Being all the time with survivors that feel the same as me, meet the survivors from 9/11 that are part of humanity like me, and meet the Jewish community outside Israel gave me so much strength, and this is why I came back to the state the last 4 months to tell my story.
Wow. And being at the Nova exhibit, did it feel real? Did they do a good job in making it seem like the festival? What was it like? Because you essentially have to relive your experience to be there. And I think you must have set the world record for the shortest attendance of the Nova Music Festival, because you were there, 29 minutes before the attack started? So for you, it's very raw because you were there only a short time, unfortunately. So talk to me about the exhibit and your experience there.
So unfortunately, I didn't dance that day on October 7th. Being at the Nova exhibit is the most time that I've been at the Nova festival, actually. And this is the story of this exhibit. This is Nova. And I don't like to call this exhibit because it's not exhibit, it's not a museum. It's a live testimony of what we've been through from October 7 until today. And the way people can cope that is that the murdered wall that we memorial all the 411 attendants of the festival that murdered that day were updated all the times that the exhibit exists, because bodies rescued from Gaza of people that were kidnapped at the Nova Festival and then murdered in Gaza. So it's a live testimony. Every day we heard about more testimonies and we enter that to the exhibit. So it's really the way we live our life the last year, but it still feels like home. When you pass the exhibit, first it starts with a video that tells about our community before October 7, and the way we dance and the way we love through dance and the light that we want to spread to the world. You can see what happened that day, and all the items of the exhibit are real from Re'im, from Israel. And we finish with the story of our community after October 7 and the way we support each other. So for me, being there, it's full with a lot of sadness and a lot of pain. It's also full with all the values that I have as a person and the community have. So it's really enter the exhibit is being part of the Nova, what is Nova to us and who we are as people. And also it's really historical. It's the first time that I understood that I'm part of historical moment, of a moment that will be written in the history of Israel, in the history of the Jewish community all over the world. This is really important to talk about what happened there. So being part of the exhibit is a huge privilege because I can be there. I can tell my story. I can relive it all the time and still being enough strong to support people in the end. But there are a lot of survivors in Israel that can't. They can't wake up in the morning, feel good about themselves. They can't go to work. And I'm their voice, actually. The exhibit now in Los Angeles until October 20, and she probably will move to another places in the state. And you can follow the exhibit on Instagram, Nova Exhibition. And I hope that everyone will go and see the way our community live.
Yeah, and when I visited the exhibit, I visited in New York. I think it must have been like either the week it opened in New York City or the week after it opened in New York City, right at the beginning. I just was so shocked by how real it felt and how they were able to bring so many items from the festival and preserve them in the state that it looked like it would have been, because the festival was outside. And there was one video of a man who was at the festival, and he has a wife and a young son, and he was trapped under a car for, I think, 4 hours. And he ultimately now has to walk with a cane because his leg is permanently injured. And I remember watching the video, and as I was watching it, he came up to me with his cane, like in person. I thought I saw a ghost. I was ready to faint, because I couldn't believe that it was him. And I just didn't say anything. I just stood there with my mouth open, the jaw on the floor. And he just came up and hugged me. And I was like, that's me. Look, don't worry. I made it. And it was such an emotional experience. Like, I'm even brought to tears thinking about it now, because the fact that people went through that and then they're walking through the exhibit and they're smiling and they're asking you questions about yourself, it feels surreal. But what's most important is these are people just like us. And of course, like if something like that happened to me, God forbid, I would also want to smile and come up to people and be like, see, I'm okay. Don't worry. I'm a person. I have a life. Like, I'm okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. It's just like an experience that will stay with me for the rest of my life. And I can't imagine having to go and be there. I mean, were you nervous about, I don't know if working is the right word, but it is almost like a job. You were working the Nova exhibit. Were you nervous about going there?
Okay, first, the man you talked about it is Ofir Amir, really good friend, one of the Nova producers, one of the people that established the Tribe of Nova Foundation and take care of all our community and all the 3,500 survivors. Being next to him and other survivors at the exhibit really give a lot of strength for the people that come to the exhibit, like you said about yourself. And what you felt, it's also my feeling, because when I came the first time to the exhibit, it was at the opening night in New York. And I was really excited to be there because for me, it was, like I said before, a historical moment. I understood that we are part of history, and this is how I looked at the exhibit at first. So when I went through the exhibit, I understood that I trying to see the way that the American people need to understand what happened to us that day. And I can share that most of the days at the exhibit, most of the time, I'm only at the end of the exhibit, at the healing room. At the healing room, you can meet other survivors and talk with them, because it's really hard to pass through all the videos and all the testimony every day, because it can also, it's help you reprocess the trauma every time. And I don't want every day to focus on my trauma. Most of the days, I want to focus on my healing and the way I recover and the way I live my life the best way that I can live them. So being at the exhibit, it's complicated because you can be there and all the time reprocess the trauma or reprocess the healing journey. And when I meet people after the exhibit, like Ofir met you, it's the most significant experience, because at that time we were just two people that been through so much the last year. Everyone from the Jewish community and everyone that Israel is important to him and the Jewish community important to him been through so much this year, and we are still traumatized every day. So being together, hug, love each other, gives so much strength and help to my personal healing.
It's very comforting to hear you say that, because sometimes it feels like I don't know how you can go every day, and I don't know how I could help someone who has been through such an experience. So meeting the survivors at the exhibit, it's like, I know that nothing I could ever say or nothing I could ever do could help, but the fact that you're saying that time and time again, when you show up and talk to people, and at the end of the day, you and I are just two people that had, the worst year of our lives, it gives me comfort. It makes me feel better that maybe there is something that I said or something that I've done that has helped someone, or has made them smile, or, help them process the experience a little bit better, or made their day better. So I appreciate that a lot.
I share a lot that only people that almost died can understand the way people look at me and love me. And this is what the people at the end of the exhibit do. They just come to us, the survivors, and tell us how much they love us and how much they glad that we are alive. And this is the most helpful thing that everyone can do when you meet the survivors. Just spread love against all the evil that we experience in October 7th.
You're absolutely right. We do love all the people that live in Israel. We feel connected as Jewish people to every single Jew. Doesn't matter where they are in the world. And of course, that feeling of relief, because the videos, they're kind of filmed in a intriguing way, because you don't know, is that person alive? Is that person not? And so then when you meet them in person, you feel this overwhelming sense of relief. I'm so happy you're okay. You're absolutely right. And that's the genius of the exhibit, is that they were able to capture this feeling and to create this feeling for every single person that walks through it. So I agree with you completely. You put my thoughts into words. And as we are reflecting back on a year now of the Holocaust of our generation, is there anything you wish you could tell your past self?
I wish I could tell my Eilat on October 7 that the treatment and the therapy will take time, and everything that I would do the last year, it's okay. A lot of people come to me that are not survivors, and I feel the shame of they didn't understand what happened the first days. They didn't understand the magnitude of the event. And all the time I told them I was there and I didn't understand what happened. I was there and I didn't knew what happened to me and to my friends. I was there and I didn't realize that I traumatized. So just understood that the recovery will take a lot of time, and also tell to myself, ask for help. And I'm really glad that I got help from my friends, from my family, from my community, and I've been able to do that really from the first month. But a lot of people still struggle with that because they have a lot of shame about what happened today, about the fact that they survived. And they also have a lot of shame to ask for help. And I think that I can say that for everyone, that Israel and the Jewish community is important to him, and October 7, and he was affected from October 7.
So actually hearing your episode on the Nova Exhibit podcast where you talked about what happened to you was the first time I heard somebody talk about processing trauma in the same way that I do. So if anything traumatic ever happens to me, I just black out. I don't remember it. And it doesn't even have to be traumatic. For example, last week, I threw a big Shabbat dinner for all my friends. And it was a really nice upscale event, one that I planned for 3 months with a friend of mine who also does Jewish events in the community. And I wasn't traumatized, obviously, but I was so nervous for it because I wanted it to go well. My friends spent $120 a person to attend this event that I put together. And so I was really nervous and worried about every detail. And so at the end of the night, my friends came up to me and were like, "Did you have fun?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't remember anything." It felt like I was there for 5 hours. It felt like an hour had gone by. And then I just kind of woke up. And that's just how I cope with stress. And hearing you talk about I just froze. I don't know. I'm sure I saw dead bodies, but I don't remember seeing it. I'm sure we must have spent hours running, but to me it was 10 minutes. It was the first time that I heard someone talk about stress management and trauma management in the exact way that I experienced those things. And I know that this experience is not unique to you and I a lot. A lot of people process it that way, but it's a shameful experience because how can you not remember? But then when you remember it, you wonder, wait, did that really happen? Or am I making it up because I'm just remembering something and I don't really know what happened because I can't prove it? And that's why I think there's a lot of shame around that experience. And it meant a lot to hear you speak about recollecting your experiences managing stress and trauma, because it made me realize that clearly this is a normal phenomenon across people. So I think you impacted me in a way that you don't even know until now that I told you. So the question that comes to mind for me is, what else could you tell young Jewish people, the same people as you who love to go to music festivals and enjoy dance and love and light? What do you wish you could tell them?
First, thank you so much for sharing with me that. Being the idea that I froze and I don't remember, it's something that I really coped with that the last year. And also it's not the first time for me that I don't remember things when I'm traumatized. And this is really normal situation. And also it's a good situation because now I don't have nightmares. I don't have flashbacks. I can live my life. But the shame is really because I didn't know what happened to me and how it can be. And also maybe I can do things otherwise if I would know what happened to me in that moment on October 7th. I think most of the people in Israel and outside Israel, this is what they ask themselves, what we can do different on October 7th or the day before. We can't ask that. We can ask ourselves what we can do, like you asked me. And I remember that I met students from Colombia, Jewish students from Colombia. And I told them, like I said before, that I really trying not to be ashamed about the way I cope with things at first. When I didn't talk about it, when I just said that I was there but nothing happened, when I couldn't meet with the people that flew with me in the car because it was too much. And what I told to the students is maybe at the first time that someone told you something anti-Semitic, you froze. You couldn't answer him. You walk away. You didn't tell anyone. It's okay. The second time, maybe you will tell your friends. The first time, maybe you could tell your supervisor or bring your friends or maybe answer something to him. Not the perfect answer that you want to say, but something. And every time we learn more about how to deal with the situation because it's new for all of us. If you didn't answer yesterday, maybe you will answer 2 days from now. And the second thing is that we are responsible for our environment. We can be only the Jewish together and support ourselves in this difficult time. Maybe it's difficult in Jaffa or in Haifa, in Israel, in cities in Israel that are also Arabs in the population. But in America, you can do that because you're not only Jewish. In your workplace, you're Jewish and more religions all the time. So we are responsible of our environment and the values that we have in our classroom, in our workplace. So talk about who you are, share about what happened. And I know that we need a lot of strength for that, and we need to be brave. This will create a better future for the Jewish, for Israel, and for all humanity. We have responsibility. A lot of people ask me after testimonies what I think happened at the universities in the state. And I told them that I don't really know because I wasn't a student in America. I study in Israel. But who study in America and who is part of America knows what happened. He knows where he were silent about anti-Semitism. And we have responsibility to not be silent about bullying, about violence of all people, and about anti-Semitism. And if you can do it alone, take part in a community, get a lot of strength from that.
I just want to add that everything you said, it feels like you're talking to me personally because what you're saying is exactly the reason why I left my job at Amazon and went to go work for an Israeli tech company. And when you and I met at that party, it was like April or May or something like that. It must have been like my third week on the job at the new Israeli tech company. And when I left Amazon, I was very vocal about the fact that I am leaving and specifically going to an Israeli company because I am responsible for my environment. And I don't want to work in an environment like Amazon where in the elevators at work, it says Free Palestine, and that's okay. And where there is a HR page called The Situation in Gaza that accuses Israel of apartheid and genocide and ethnic cleansing. I am responsible for my environment and I will not work in that environment. So everything you're saying really, really resonates with me. And I know it will resonate with everybody else because you're right. In America, we have to tell the people around us what we expect out of them because most of the time, if not all the time, being Jewish is the minority here. Thank you so much for doing this, Eilat. It's been a real privilege and honestly a healing experience for me, which I didn't expect. So thank you extra for that. How can people connect with you on social media and learn more about your progress and your work?
Thank you so much for having me tell my story. It's part of my healing. And also, it's a good opportunity to say thank you for all the people that I met the last 6 months. It's that really helped me recover and brought so much light and love for my life. And you can contact me on Instagram, Eilat Tibi. You can see details about the Nova exhibition at the Nova exhibition Instagram. And thank you so much.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please go ahead and rate us 5 stars. Be the first to hear our episodes by subscribing to People You Want to Know wherever you get your podcasts. And for exclusive content, follow us on Instagram at People You Want to Know.